Are you looking for true personal freedom? The freedom to design a life you truly desire? Then you're absolutely in the right place. True personal freedom comes from when you take 100% responsibility and control of your money and your mind. Here you're going to learn ideas, tips, and wisdom that's going to help you bridge the gap from where you are now to your dream life in the future. My name is Randy Wilson, and welcome to the RichMind podcast. Okay, welcome to the RichMind podcast. Today, I am super excited to have on the line with me, Mike Ayala. Mike is a successful husband. He is a successful father of three. He's built a huge organization as far as businesses. He has real estate. He is very active in the mobile home space as far as with real estate and that type of thing. He helps couples with a couples mastermind. He has all kinds of things that I know, and I'm super excited to get into this conversation with Mike to dig a little bit deeper. But super excited to have him here on the show today. I know he's going to add a ton of value to you, the listener. So, Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Randy, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
So sorry. I set my phone down on the Roadcaster and it just did that. I did not mean to do that. I promise.
Hey, Tim, let's see if we can't get that out. That'll be a good test for you, right?
Holy cow.
That's funny.
That was totally unintentional. So sorry.
And if that sticks, that will go down in history right there, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. So first off, man, for those that aren't familiar with Mike Ayala, the man, the investor, the husband, the father, can you get a little bit of context, who you are, where you're from, just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So currently, Karen and I live in Austin, Texas. We've been here for probably a year and a half now. Actually, it's probably getting closer to 2 years almost, but yeah. So Karen and I have been married for 23 years. It'll be 24 years in May. We've got a 22-year-old son. He'll be 23 in May. We have a 21-year-old. Well, Tim's 20, but he'll be 21 next week. So I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but he's 21. And then Kate, our youngest, is 19. Dylan just got engaged, so we're adding a daughter to the family. Yeah, just, I started my first business at the age of 24 and then quickly started investing in real estate. And, most of that was driven by the fact that, we were slaves to someone else's schedule and time and, demands on me and everything else. And it's not really, what I wanted. So I was fortunate to, really have my awakening at an early age. I don't know that if you would have asked me, prior to the age of 24, if I was going to be, an entrepreneur or an investor or any of that, I would have said yes. Cause that's not really, I wasn't somebody that was like, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I was always entrepreneurial, selling suckers in junior high, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I don't know that I would have, identified as an entrepreneur, but, through, again, being a slave to somebody else's schedule. And, I heard Robert Kiyosaki say that the thing that's scary is to wake up on January 1st and know what you're going to make by December 31st. And I really resonated with that. And so, through a series of events, we left and started a business and then started investing. And so, you fast forward, that brings you to today. And yeah, just, I've always kind of tried to keep the business in its place and the investments in its place. The reason why so many people are frustrated with their jobs is because they're a slave to somebody else's schedule. But then what we do is we, leave someone else's schedule and we become a slave to our own schedule. And so I think I've done a pretty good job of, balancing business and entrepreneurship and investing with keeping what's important. And that's really, families. I've been saying it a lot lately, but it's like REM. I condense it to REM in my mind, not the band. Relationships, experiences, and memories. And that's what kind of drives everything we're looking for, but we tend to get that out of balance sometimes. So I think, if there's any one thing that identifies me, it's a husband, it's a family man, it's a guy who loves to have experiences and relationships and memories, as I talk about. And the businesses and the investments are just there to fuel that. So there we go.
That's awesome. So for getting into just a few questions, just dive a little bit deeper into some of that to pull out some of that wisdom, some of that, those experiences, those relationships, those types of things. One question I have is, as far as your biggest influence, who has been the biggest influence in your life up to this point?
Man, I've got a couple, but I'll say the maybe not so obvious. I think my real dad, who was a great example of what I didn't want. I mean, he was not a good husband. He was not a good father. He was just not a good person. He was lazy. He was unmotivated. And I think growing up in that environment until the age of 8, it really taught me what I didn't want to be. And so, I think we can have as many lessons and experiences from those negative times, whether it's something that someone taught us or whether it's a bad experience in business or challenging times in business. I think we underestimate the value of those negative experiences to, really have a positive influence on our life. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, why is this happening to me? Poor me. But really, you can take those negative experiences and turn them into positive. If, probably the most positive influence in my life, positive person and positive influence was probably my wife, Kara. And so many times when I bring this up, I don't want to give a cliche answer, but man, she's just, she's just a gem. She's full of wisdom and, we've been aligned. I know one of the issues in entrepreneurship and investing, a lot of times couples are not aligned, and that's really why we do the work we do at the Couples Mastermind. But Karen and I have always been kind of aligned. And it's kind of funny too, because I'm not a huge astronomy type person, but she's an Aries and I'm a Libra, and those two signs can be either really bad for each other or really good, and we just tend to be really good. And I think part of the reason behind that is because we just give each other grace, and we communicate often, and we spend a lot of time together, and we don't really nag and nitpick at each other. And so she's just taught me a lot about grace and forgiveness and just what it is to be a good human. And just back to that family dynamic, man, there's nothing more important to her than, raising amazing kids and just having a tight family unit. And we've been able to do that. So I'll throw Kara in the mix from a positive standpoint.
That's a very good idea. That's a very good idea. And having known Kara myself, right? You hit the jackpot, man. Congratulations. It's one of those things that back in the day, right? You don't necessarily know, but as you fast forward and get on with life, you start realizing all the good that comes with that partnership, and how you can develop that in a way that is so meaningful, not only for you, but for your kids and for your community, for everything that you come involved with, your organizations, that type of thing. So yeah, that's a beautiful thing. So you touched on it briefly, but going into the second question, as far as your greatest challenge and what did you learn from it, can you think back to when one of your greatest challenges was, and what the biggest aha or the big takeaway was for you?
Man, so many, right? And you're turning the tables on me here. It's like narrowing it down to one single biggest challenge is really tough. There's been a lot, but I think maybe one of the most impactful challenges was as a pretty young entrepreneur. I think it was in 2007. We had a very large customer go bankrupt on us, and I had probably 18, 20 guys working around the clock, and we knew they were struggling. So we had them on a really tight pay timeline. We had them on a 7-day pay timeline. So the fact that they owed us $400,000, I mean, we were probably doing $1 to $1.5 million a month with these guys. They were in trouble with the EPA. It was a big gold mine. And basically they were just, trying to save their company. And anyway, when they shut the doors and went bankrupt, like I said, they owed us $400,000. I had a bunch of employees that were relying on that income, and we had been scaling, pretty substantially in the years leading up to that, which is, what you do. I mean, when things are good, you grow your business, and when things are bad, you downsize your business. And fortunately things had been good, but then all of a sudden, that happened. And then we're just right on the precipice of 2008. And so that Christmas, Randy, I had to look 30 some employees in the eye and tell them they didn't have a job anymore. And then we went to battle trying to, collect this money. And I learned a ton through that experience. I called one of my mentors. His name's Barry Liparelli. He's a, great mentor of mine, has taught me a ton. And I just, by the way, as a side note, I've borrowed a ton of money from him over the years too, but usually it started with me asking for advice and then him saying, hey, do you need some help with that? And I'd be like, sure. And then it got to the point where, we just had a financial relationship where if I need money, I would ask him to do, whether it's for a deal or, for a business startup or whatever. But it started out usually me asking for advice. So, if there's any lesson, I'll tell you a couple lessons in this whole thing. But number one, don't be scared to ask for help, because usually When you're in trouble and you need help the most, we tend to shrink back, and we don't want to be honest, and we don't want to be vulnerable, and we don't want to be authentic. And, we want the world to think we have everything together, but it's when you ask for help, like I needed to do that day. Barry came into a conference room and spent half a day with us, just, listing out all of our debt, the money we owed our vendors, what our sales projections were going to look like. And he really just helped me kind of sort through that. And, from there, I like called up, one of my top vendors that I owed a bunch of money to. And I got on a call with their CFO, and he said, Mike, I heard you wanted to talk to me. I'm guessing this is concerning, Queen Steak, which was the name of the gold mine. I said, yeah. And he said, boy, what a situation. They owe us, I think they owed them like $2 million or something. So they owed them even more. And, when I got past the fear of talking about it and started having conversations and, confronting this stuff head on, everybody was great. They made payment plans for me. Some of it was with promissory notes against real estate that we had owned and all kinds of stuff. But really, I think the biggest lesson in all of that is, by the way, as a side note, we ended up collecting that money, but the biggest lesson is just hit this stuff head on. You don't see generals in times of battle shrink back. That's when generals shine. And, so for your audience, whether they're, desiring to be entrepreneurs or they already are, or whatever it is, it's like, it's the hard times that determine whether you're going to continue to be a leader and what kind of leader you're going to be. And so hitting that stuff head on, again, everybody's willing to help once you're authentic and honest about what the real problems are. And I'll say one last thing, just, kind of going through that process. And I said, we got paid. One thing Barry Liparelli always told me was, if you want favor with someone, get in front of them. And he said, I don't care if it's, a client. I don't care if it's a vendor. I don't care if it's a bank. If you want favor with someone, get in front of them, because it's a lot harder for them to say no when they're looking you in the eye than it is behind an email or whatever. And when that mine went bankrupt, I literally one day, so the newspaper basically shared that the CFO of that organization and the CEO had gotten fired, and they announced who the interim CFO was. And so I tracked down, I think you'll like this, just tell this real quick. I tracked down the fractional CFO, the interim CFO for that organization from Vancouver, Canada. I was living in Nevada at the time. I tracked down the phone number. And so I called the number and I said, hey, can I talk to Sean Heinrichs? This was this guy's name. I'll never forget it, right? Because these experiences burn in your mind. I said, can I talk to Sean Heinrichs? And they're like, yeah, can we ask who's calling? And I said, this is Mike Ayala from Queen Steak in Elko, Nevada. So I didn't really tell him who I was. And they're like, hold on one second. And so I'm fully expecting the secretary to get back on and be like, he's not available. This is Sean. And I was like, what? No way. Like I got the CFO, the interim CFO on a call, who's probably getting bombarded by phone calls, by the way. And I said, hey, Sean, you don't know me, but I'm one of the vendors from Queen Steak. I'm actually going to be in Vancouver next Wednesday, and just wondering if I could just stop by and talk to you. We're not a huge firm. I think at that point in time, I had 100 and some employees. I said, this situation, while I understand you didn't cause it, and I understand that you're dealing with it, this is going to be challenging for all of us. And I'd like to just sit down and chat with you for a few minutes about what the future looks like. And he says, yeah, Mike, what time are you going to be there? And I said, well, I'm actually coming in Tuesday night and I'm leaving late Wednesday. So you tell me. I'm pretty flexible that day. And he says, how about 1 o'clock? And I said, great, I'll see you at 1 o'clock. And I jumped on an airplane and I made my way to Vancouver. And I'll tell you what, we ended up getting paid a lot faster than a lot of our competitors, et cetera, did, because, I had that. He actually wrote me a $70,000 check that day. He said, I've got this slush fund of money that I can utilize in the short term. He wrote me a $70,000 check. So it took the balance from like 430 down to whatever, 360 or 350, whatever the difference was. And I got paid faster because I had a relationship with Sean and he was keeping me updated, and we chose not to go into a group bankruptcy. I stayed, as part of a separate group that we're working it out with Queen Steak, and I got paid a lot faster. So anyway, I'll kick it back to you, but a lot of lessons in there.
That is a lot of lessons, and a lot of lessons learned, obviously, through that experience. But then I'm sure you've been able to apply moving forward with different situations as your organizations have grown, even as your family has grown, right? The idea of getting in front of the people, tackling it head on. versus hiding in the background and waiting for things to kind of figure themselves out. I kind of feel like that's kind of where we are in the state of the economy in the world today, is that a lot of folks are shrinking back into themselves versus meeting it head on. And yeah, there are some obstacles, but if you address them, find some mentorship and see what happens, right? We're all people just trying to get to a final destination of a win-win for both. I know you say that a lot, right? Through Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, of getting to a win-win and how important that is. And if you can be the person coming to the table with portion of that win-win, right? Yeah, you're going to be able to get a lot better results and a lot faster time set for yourself. And obviously you've proven that through this process.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know you have 20-year-olds at home, as do I. And one of the passions I have is trying to help that generation that is just getting started, trying to figure out where to go. They've gotten through the quote unquote, the system, the school system. They might be trying to figure out what's real, what isn't real, where to go, where to get started. I know you have your podcast, The Investing for Freedom, but as far as with your kids, your 20-year-old kids, is there anything you find yourself sharing, or, if you could look back to your 20-year-old self, that any pieces of wisdom that you can think of that you wish you would have known then, that obviously that you've come through with these experiences that you have now?
I think we overcomplicate almost everything in life. And, I think a lot of us are looking for, this magic bullet, some coach, some program, some, shortcut hack, if you will. In even just thinking of that, 20 something, by the way, I love playing video games. I grew up playing video games and played video games with my boys, and still, I don't have a video game console hooked up in my office, but if I did, it would be really distracting to me. So the concept of cheat codes, if you think about video games, for many years, like, and I'm sure they still have cheat codes, but, up, up, down, down, left, right, A, B, C, whatever, to get certain weapons or bypass certain levels, or, have this superpower or whatever. These are cheat codes that we do in video games. And I think a lot of times, we're looking for the cheat code in life. And if I had anything to tell my 20-year-old self, or if I was talking to, my kids, or, a 20 something, or even just somebody, forget age, somebody just getting started in whatever it is you want to get started in, we're all looking for the hack. We're all looking for the cheat code to kind of bypass the system. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but the reality is the only way you're really going to learn the lessons is to get in there and learn the lessons. And when you skip or try to skip level 1 through level 7 through a cheat code, or, some shortcut or whatever, that's great. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try to do that, but the reality is, you're still going to have to learn the lessons the hard way. And I think the best lessons to be learned are from someone else, whether it's with mentorship, whether it is a course, whether it's investing with someone as a partner. There's plenty of people out there that are looking to deploy capital that might want to invest with your audience, or, invest in a business with them or whatever. And that's, I mentioned this earlier with Barry. I would go to Barry with a problem, and he would say, "Hey, well, have you thought about this?" And he'd usually teach me something, and he'd give some ideas and advice. And then, a lot of times he'd say, "Do you need some money?" And he would literally invest in my problem. Right. And if you think about it, if you flip that a little bit, and you think about it from Barry's perspective, I would much rather invest with someone who I'm able to mentor, that I know is teachable, that I know is looking, to, I don't want to say shortcut, because I think, I don't want to confuse the message here. Yes, we should look for cheat codes. Yes, we should look for mentors. Yes, we should look for courses. But the reality is, at some point in time, you have to just get off your keister and just start moving and getting things done and start failing. One of my favorite books ever is Failing Forward. And the reason why is because the only reason that I have the success, and the only reason that I'm even talking to you today, is because I've failed so many times. And so there's a balance between mentors, coaches, programs, trying to get the cheat codes so we don't fail. There's a balance between that and just never doing anything. And at some point in time, you have to stop learning and you have to start moving. You have to start getting into motion and making mistakes and just learning the hard way. And yes, we want to mitigate the size of the mistakes and lose less money if possible. And we do that through mentors, courses, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is, At some point in time, you've learned enough and you got to just get moving.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I know you say, or I've heard you say many times, that you can't steer a parked car, that you've got to get it moving in order to adjust, right? Your three ways of saying that, having the idea, and as far as tracking and then course correcting, and then making sure that you're just pivoting along the way, is crucial to getting to the results that you're looking for. And shortcuts, yeah, there are different ways that you can mitigate, I like the word mitigate, different challenges and obstacles, but at the same time, yeah, figuring out and taking action, right?
Mm.
Getting out there, getting started, trying to figure out what's best, which is, I know exactly what you try to do through your Investing for Freedom podcast and the other things that you're involved with as well, the Freedom Elite community, the couples mastermind. So can you take a few minutes? And I know personal freedom is big as far as what you advocate, trying to teach and help folks realize what, number one, what's possible, but then what they can do to start taking some of that action. Is there anything that, along with your podcasts and the other things that you're involved with, that you can maybe help folks with as far as pointing them in the right direction?
So sorry, can you clarify the question? Like, what do you mean help them with?
So as far as your Investing for Freedom with your podcast, with your message, with your personal, right, with the gaining personal freedom, right, as far as the message that you try to convey through your Investing for Freedom, and then the Freedom Elite and that type of thing, as far as trying to get some personal freedom and how you can do that as you course correct and move along through life.
Yeah. So how do we actually achieve personal freedom?
There you go.
Yeah. Well, first thing I think you got to figure out is, what does that mean to you? Because, in this day and age, especially, what I love about the United States of America? I mean, it is the most free country that exists. And as many problems as we have, this nation was founded on freedom, and we're not even really that old. It's the most, I don't want to get into a debate here with anybody, but when you look at the miracle of what the United States is, just, when you even just think from a history lesson, there's all these years of, like the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church. And then the King of England decides that they're going to create the Church of England, right? Which is basically just a spinoff of the Catholic Church. And when you look at, just even our entire nation is built on the separation of church and state, because they should be separate, and people should have the freedom of religion and the freedom to worship and the freedom of speech. And so I think, again, what's important, and the reason why I'm saying all of this, is like, we live in the most free country ever. And yet so many people are a slave to somebody else's, desire for their life or schedule for their life or whatever it is. Like, so many people are in bondage to that in the freest country that's ever existed. And I would imagine in the country that has the ability for anyone to be successful, and so many people would probably say, well, you don't know where I grew up, or you don't know what my family was like. Well, I said this in the beginning. I didn't grow up in a great family. My dad was lazy. And you know what? Going to McDonald's every 6 or 8 weeks with my grandma was a treat for me, because I would get a Happy Meal and I would get that little Lego toy. I still to this day love Legos as an adult man. Like, I put Legos together, and Kara and the kids would tell you this. I used to tell the kids when I was little, if you talk to anybody that's successful in business, they probably played with Legos when they were little. Now that's not necessarily true anymore. But the reality was, like, Legos for me represented something, and McDonald's represented something for me. Like I just didn't have, that was an experience. So nobody can tell me that, I grew up living in a mobile home park. We lived in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath with 5 of us. My parents, at this point in time, my stepdad, my mom, they were working their tails off. They were trying to make a better life for us. And it was one of the greatest experiences I ever had in my life. And now I own a bunch of mobile home parks everywhere. And so nobody can tell me, well, Mike, you don't know what I grew up with, and you don't know the challenges. In fact, if you look at most first generation successful entrepreneurs, and it's not so much the case anymore, but if you look back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, many first generation successful entrepreneurs were immigrants. And so you can't look at me and tell me that, oh, it's because you had some kind of special ticket. No, we live in the freest, greatest country that has more opportunity than any other country in the nation or in the world for freedom. I was in Mexico a couple of weeks ago and I was talking to my driver, and all he wants is to be able to buy his own car because, he drives, he's a driver, but he has to rent the car on a weekly basis from a guy that owns 20 vehicles that just rents them to drivers. And this guy's like making a ton of money. And so he just, he wants to just be able to buy his own car. And Kara made this comment. She said, man, I can't wait till we get to the point when you hear a need like that, you can just meet it. Like you just invest money in this guy's business, and help him start his business. But I'm thinking about this in Mexico. If that guy was in the United States of America, he's not a bum. Like this guy works his butt off. If he was in the United States of America, he would drive on down to the GM dealership and he would buy himself a Suburban, with $2,000 or $3,000 down instead of having to pay cash. But in Mexico, you have to pay cash for vehicles. There's no financing there. Same thing with real estate. There's very little financing. So in the United States of America, money is inexpensive. Investors are lined up left and right. There's more people with money in the United States than anywhere in the world. And yet we're making excuses. So let me get to the question. When you really think about this, that's why I said first, you have to design, what does freedom look like to you? What does it really mean to you? Because it's different for everybody. And usually there's an away energy that most people would start with. Why do you want financial freedom? Well, most people would say, because I'm tired of not being able to do X, Y, Z, because I'm sick and tired of not having to, not being able to go see Jimmy's game, or I'm sick and tired of not being able to have my weekends off when I want, or I'm sick and tired of not being able to take my family on a vacation. But we need to flip that. We need to stop thinking about what we're running away from. And we need to change our energy toward, okay, well, what would freedom look like to you? What would that mean? And for me, like an early way that I heard this was freedom to me, financial freedom to me can be measured in the number of days that I don't have to go to work or that I can take off. For me, freedom, and I'll bring this back to what I said earlier, relationships, experiences, and memories, REM. Almost everybody that's listening to this podcast right now, even if you challenged me on this, if you really sat with this, freedom to you probably has something to do with relationships with someone, experiences that you want to have that you feel like you currently can't have, and memories that you want to create with those people. And yes, there's a whole bunch of things outside of that. I got a vision board sitting right over here that has all my things on it. I want a Porsche and I want this certain, Rolex that has a meteorite background and all the things that I want. You know what? That's great. You should be rewarded for doing amazing things in the world. But really what matters to me, Randy, is the time that I get to spend with my wife and my children and friends. And, we just got back, like I was saying, from Mexico City, and Kara and I and all three of my kids and the boys' girlfriends, Dylan's fiance and Tim's girlfriend. And I'll tell you, when I look back at memories on Facebook or whatever it is, and, many of them are filled with trips that we took as a family, but also many of them are filled with extended family, meaning each one of the kids had a friend with them sitting with us in Mexico or California or on a lake trip in the summer. And we were able to also provide experiences and memories for kids that may have never, maybe they've never experienced this. Maybe they never sat at the dinner table every single night. Freedom to me was literally missing very few dinners as my children were growing up. We had dinner together almost every night. So we always focus on the how. How am I going to get to financial freedom? And it's usually through real estate or business or, some sort of passive investing or, getting a better job or, saving more money or whatever you subscribe to, whether it's, Dave Ramsey or Kiyosaki or Ken McElroy, it doesn't matter. We're always focused on the what, but what I would challenge your audience with first is like, who is it? What is it? We can always talk about the how we're going to get there, but shifting that energy from like, I'm just so sick and tired of, I wish I could just take my kids to Disneyland, twice a year instead of every 3 years. Well, that's a good start, but shift the energy. I want to be able to invest for freedom, because freedom to me is, if one of the kids wants to go to Disneyland, or if one of the kids is hurting and needs me to just take a day off. Literally one time Dylan was struggling in his business like 3 or 4 years ago. And I told Kara, I said, I think I just need to get away with Dylan for a couple of days. It was Sunday. So I go into Dylan and I said, hey, do you want to take a few days off and go snowboarding, go hit the slopes and just, regroup? He's like, yeah, when? I said, how about just go pack your bag? Let's go. So I'm able to take a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. To me, that's freedom. And yes, we could talk about a million ways to make that money, but really identifying first, what does freedom actually mean to you is the most important part of that equation.
That's super valuable, and I appreciate you sharing that for sure. When it comes to those relationships, I know you say a lot of times that you're working towards stacking humans or stacking those relationships, and the importance of getting in a room with people that are either like-minded or even that could possibly be challenging you, right?
Mhm.
With your thoughts, try to expand and that type of thing. I know you've had great experiences with getting yourself into rooms to meet and surround yourself with people that are taking you to different levels with those relationships. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know GoBundance is a big influence in your life, and just the idea. For me personally, growing up, I wasn't exposed to the fact or the idea that you can gain those relationships that can turn into those experiences and those memories, right? And that gives you the who, right? What you were just kind of relating to there. So can you talk a little bit about the getting in the rooms with these folks that are going to help you grow, help you expand, build those relationships?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say with that is, everybody knows the amazing, Jim Rohn quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Um, but one thing I've kind of shifted around that, Randy, is like, if I identify a group of people that I want to get around and, they're performing at a certain level that I want to be at, which is usually why we want to get with them. It's not because they're making more money. Maybe that's the case for some of you, but it's never been the thing for me. I want to, get around people that are like-minded in certain areas. And, usually money's a byproduct of that. But here's the question that I have to ask. And I've said this, for years, I've thought about this. When I think about going into the room, really one of the main reasons to get in the room is knowledge, experience, relationships, all those things that you're going to get. And that's why we pay to be in the room. You pay to be in a mastermind because the person that's usually putting that mastermind on has had some level of success in whatever area it is that you want in life. Even, we talk about the couples mastermind. There's not a requirement for success being in the couples mastermind, although, the price point and what it requires to be in there and the commitment of time automatically just suggests that you have some level of freedom and financial freedom in your world too. But why are we all surrounded? Because we want to be with other couples that are, yes, doing big things in life, but they're making their marriage a priority. And so you're always usually looking for this common theme in the mastermind. But when we think about that, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If we want to talk about a cheat code, the fastest way to kind of weed through all of that is to find a mastermind or a community that you pay to be in, again, to learn a skill, to be around other people that are like you. You just have to get really clear again on what it is that you're looking for. And I think some of those are values conversations because yes, we can join a mastermind that's around writing a book or an Amazon store or, investing in mobile home parks or whatever. But if there's 10 of those masterminds around investing in mobile home parks, I'm looking for the values alignment. I'm looking to invest in somebody's mastermind that inspires me and that I want to be like too. So I don't think it's just about the product or the tool that gets us to the money we want. It's the values alignment. And so here's the question around the 5 people that you spend the most time with that I always chew through. Why would those 5 people, if I walked up to those 5 people, they're standing in a circle and I say, hey guys, I want to be part of your 5 because I want to level up my average. And I know that you guys are further along than me. And I think you guys could do a really good thing for my average. That feels like a really real, a taking away aspect of that. And so I've always asked myself the question, why would these 5 people let me into their circle? Because if it's true that, if they're performing at a higher level, whatever it is, financial, emotional, marriage, relationships, whatever, if it's true that they're performing at a higher level, and you're down here and you come into their world, then it isn't also true that you could lower their average. If we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with and we allow one other, loser into, I don't think anybody's a loser, but we let somebody that's going to lower our average down into our group, like, why would we do that? And so then it always has challenged me to think, who do I have to become? Who do I have to show up as? Not that I'm saying that we need to be somebody that we're not, but you can't just jump from 0 to hero. You can't jump from being in the $1 million club to being in the $100 million club. It doesn't happen that way. You have to put in the work. It's impossible to steer a parked car. And so, I think people are looking for this shortcut again. And I'll just challenge you, when I really start looking for a new group, a new mastermind, a new place to be, yes, you're going to invest money. Yes, you're going to invest time, but you also have to invest in showing up as your true self and really be intentional when you show up there. Not only am I here to take something away, I need to get something. If I'm going to pay 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 to be in a mastermind, of course you want to get something, but also I don't want to just be a consumer. I want to create value as well. And I think people miss out on that. The fastest way to be able to get in these rooms and get everything you need is to get really clear on what it is you need, and then show up and lead with as much value as you possibly can. And I think people miss that. What I always want when I join a mastermind or a group or anything else, I want to leave that after a year, 2 years, 3 years, and know that I'm now friends with the person that is leading that group, the people that are in that group. And so again, I think it's more of a values conversation than anything, because if you truly join that group, yes, I want to get skill sets. Yes, I want to get knowledge. Yes, I want to get contacts. Yes, I want things shortcutted, but I want to leave as friends. And so I think the values alignment part of that is the most important. And by the way, this from being around us. I think it's the same the other way too. I will never let someone in my mastermind that I don't want to be friends with. And that's an honest statement. Because if I can't see actually, wanting to grow with you for an entire year and then be friends afterwards, it's not a fit. It's not a fit for you, and it's not a fit for me. So I think we're asking the wrong questions sometimes. Yes, you need to know what you're going to get out of a mastermind as far as like the how do I scale an Amazon business faster or whatever it is. But more importantly, like, who do I have to become in order to really achieve my full potential of being in here and being with those people, and to really just achieve my full potential? And I think mostly it's a values question.
Which is exactly where I believe when we met, because we didn't officially meet face to face until November of this last year, I would say. But
Right.
through our experiences, or my experience of following you for several years with your podcast and things, I felt like our values, my values with your family, with your wife, how you showed up, was you put on my radar. This is somebody that I need to get into the room to be around, whatever that meant. And that was in my mind for probably almost definitely months, if not even a year or two. And the opportunity came up for me to come, and me and my wife to come visit with you and Kara and the family, in another group of individuals. And I told you from the very first time we met, I told you, I was like, Mike, I feel like I know you. You don't know me at all. You have no idea about who I am, but I feel like I know you. And I felt like I could bring value to you as a husband, as a father, as a fellow entrepreneur, trying to figure it out as we go, trying to stack some relationships, right? So it's those values that drew me to you, which then has allowed us to, hopefully we'll be able to contribute together, right? I know that in full transparency, Stacy and I are part of your couples mastermind, and we've had a fantastic time getting to learn and grow as a couple with you and Kara and your family and those types of things as well. But it's those values that is, like you said, is the key ingredient, I believe, to be able to make sure that you're in the right room, but then you're also contributing to the people in the best way possible moving forward, for sure.
Yeah, such a good point. I love it.
Excellent. So I know that one big mission of yours is to develop these communities, to develop these, whether it's the couples mastermind, you also have an individual for males to come along, learn from you, learn from your experiences, pick your brain. You called it the Freedom Elite community. It's something that also that I've been involved in the amount of wisdom and the value that you bring with the Ask Mike Anythings by themselves have been, for me, have been so valuable, to the point where having this podcast, doing this podcast right now is a example of asking questions and be able to pick your brain from your experiences, that type of thing. Can you take a minute, talk about those communities that you're working to build, whether it be the Freedom Elite or even with Kara and the Couples Mastermind?
It's funny because when one of my mentors, when I told him the price point on the private community for men, the Freedom Elite, it's $199 a month. And he said, dude, you're nuts. And here's the thing for me. It when I look at the Freedom Elite community, and I'll be honest with your audience, one of the reasons why I do it and at that price point is because I want to help as many people as possible. And yes, there's upper price points. I mean, as you know, the couples mastermind is nothing to shake a stick at. It's a big investment. And also, when we talk about business, our minimum investment in most of our funds is $100,000, and you have to be an accredited investor. And, when I think about all of that, I love doing that. And I love making money together with my investors, and I love building businesses. But also, what gets me up every single day is helping to, when you see somebody that the light bulb comes on, or when you talk to someone that says, I have an investor who has invested, I don't know, a decent amount of money with me, probably more than $250,000 in less than a year. And I've known this guy for years. He was a vendor of mine. And he was actually, he's a very, very smart guy, and he's been very successful in life. And, for a while we weren't really in communication. And then he reached out to me and he said, hey, I found your podcast and I've been listening to this. And he literally told me so we've had great relationships. We've reconnected, had a lot of phone calls. We do a father-son mastermind at Lake Powell for dads and sons. And him and his son came and spent, 3 days with me and my son at Lake Powell. And he told me the other day, he said, Mike, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but I can't even begin to thank you for the impact that you've had on my life. With your podcast and just helping me to see the truth. And now we're like, he's a client of mine. I was a client of his, but we're friends. And so I wanted to set the stage with that, because that's why I do it for $199 a month. And I wanted to, let everybody know that it's not for the $199, because I could make a lot more money and, spending 5 hours a week doing other things. But there's nothing like having someone who, would possibly be interested in the Freedom Elite community. And by the way, this is for people that just want to be better in life, that even if $199 is a stretch for you, if you're a man and you want to be around guys that, some of them are W-2 employees that are just trying to figure out, how do I create more passive income? Some of them make $50,000 a year. Some of them make $500,000 a year. There's doctors in there. There's, real estate investors. There's people that own their own businesses. But some people that join this community are just wanting to figure out, I don't even know anything about investing. So I built this community that isn't just for accredited investors, because this is the thing that I think is unfair. Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called Unfair Advantage. And it's true. There's an unfair advantage out there. If you are not an accredited investor already, it's really, really hard for you to get access to deals that are really going to make you money. And if you don't have money to invest in a $10 or $15 or $25,000 real estate mastermind, it's an unfair advantage, because you don't already have that money. The people that have the money are able to invest in more of their education and get invested in communities like GoBundance, which is one of my favorite communities. You have to be accredited to get into it, though. And so there's all these people that are like, I don't have any money to invest, but how do I get started? If you can't afford $199, figure out how to afford $199 a month and join something like the Freedom Elite, because you will not find a community like that at that price point anywhere. And again, it's because I have a passion, and I'm fully convinced that, I have some ulterior motives around this. If I can help 100 people in a paid community like that, that's 100 people that are not reaching out to me, that I'm saying no to on Instagram because somebody wants to pick my brain. I get those phone calls a lot. And the reality is, you have to pay to play at whatever level you're at. And so that's the only advice that I can really give around sharing the Freedom Elite. At some point in time, I have invested guarantee over $1 million in travel, masterminds, learning, education. And I will continue to do that, because we never stop learning and we never stop growing. So if you can't afford to invest $199 in your future, then I don't know that there's help.
Guys, if you're out there, if this is resonating with you at all, we will have links in the show notes to where you can go learn about the Freedom Elite community. at the very least, go find the Investing for Freedom podcast. Listen to Mike, listen to his guests, but get inside of this Freedom Elite community. I can speak from experience. The value that he's providing is far greater than this $199 a month. If the $199 a month is the barrier, there's bigger issues to be addressed, which we can talk about those things as well. But at the same point, you've got one thing that I have learned, and I've learned this on my own, is you've got to get into the room with folks that are doing bigger things than you are currently doing, if that's your desire. If you're looking to get to the next level, I don't care if it's in business, I don't care if it's in relationships, if it's even starting a podcast. Yep. Get in the room with folks that are doing it already. And yes, it's going to cost you some money. Yes, it's going to take some time. But I'm telling you, if you show up to provide value, make it a reciprocal relationship, you will be amazed in a very relatively short period of time how quickly you will get that back. So make sure, go to the Freedom Elite community, learn more about it, just get signed up. Just get signed up. I know Mike has an offer where he will just, if it's not working, you pay as you go. If you don't like it, you opt out. It's not a commitment, but I'm telling you, you will get more value out of it than you could ever imagine. You're also, and I don't want to take up any more time. I know you're a very busy guy. I know you've got another thing to run too. So as far as the couples mastermind, I think you have possibly some things coming up with that as well. Is there anything you'd like to touch base on with you and Kara also, along with the
we're actually really excited because, as you know, the couples mastermind is for 5 couples, and we spend an entire year together. Can't take more than 5 couples. And that's how it's been the last couple of years. But this year we decided to flip it on its head. And actually, I don't know when this episode's launching, but April 2nd, we are opening up a virtual online community for couples that will be, drastically discounted. We're going to do a lot of the same things that we would do in the normal couples mastermind. We'll have monthly calls. We'll bring in speakers. We're going to go over a scorecard that you and your spouse can do together. We'll have breakout rooms where the guys get together with me and the girls get together with Kara. Obviously, we can't provide the same amount of value that we would in a $50,000 couples mastermind, but this price point is going to be, it's similar to the other one, the other online community. We've set the price point at a place that's pretty inexpensive because we want to impact more couples and we want to build this community. It's on a great platform called Mighty Networks. You'll be able to, like when you have access, you can communicate to other or with other couples, access to all the recordings. Again, we're going to bring in the same speakers that we would bring for the couples mastermind into the monthly calls. And then we're just flipping the couples mastermind to a little different version next year. We'll still have, travel and all that kind of stuff. Also, this is exciting. For those of you that love or have seen the couples mastermind trips, we are launching a September trip that's going to be for only couples that are in the mastermind or the online community. So you'll be able to access that as well. But yeah, we're excited about the online community because we can only spend, that intimate time with 5 other couples a year. But with this online community, we'll be able to, be around and impact hundreds of couples. And I believe at the end of the day that, marriage is probably the number one thing, that union, strong husbands and wives working together, performing together, doing life together is probably the number one thing that has been attacked in the last, 100 years. It's eroding the fabric of, I'm not saying that everybody needs to get married. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying you need to have kids, but the reality is strong families are at the foundation of any strong, country, community, anything that exists. There's that old saying that behind every, amazing man is an amazing woman. I don't believe that. I get the premise behind it, but the reality is when you see an amazing husband and an amazing wife together, they usually just go off and do amazing things. And so, it just happens to be that one of them is probably more in the spotlight than the other one many times. But yeah, we're excited about the online community because we just want to impact and help more couples, find that freedom. And there's just, talk about cheat codes. There's some amazing cheat codes when you join a community like that. So
absolutely. So once again, folks, this time for guys and gals, if you have a spouse and this is something that is of interest of you, I will have also the notes or the links to the couples mastermind as well. This community that is going to be forming here very soon. that once again, the value you will gain from these other couples, including Mike and Kara, is going to be well worth the price of admission. So I definitely recommend check it out, get involved, start building some relationship capital in your life, and watch the results roll in. Well, Mike, this has been a fantastic conversation. I truly appreciate your time. I appreciate the wisdom that you've shared. Is there any final parting wisdom that you'd like to share once more before we wrap it up here today?
No, I think, I already said it. Just get really clear on what your freedom is, what it means to you, because all the other things, you'll find what you need. You'll find the community, you'll find the mentors, you'll find the mastermind, but you got to get clear first on what it is that you really want, and happy to be a part of that. And just here to help.
Absolutely. So go out there, get some clarity, folks. Get some clarity. Go out there, have a fantastic day, work on becoming more, and we will check you next time in the next episode. Have a fantastic day now. Thanks now. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on the RichMind podcast. I hope you found a ton of value in this episode. If so, I'd really appreciate a 5-star review, and you can also share it with your family and friends. And as my mentor Jim Roden shared with me, in order to have more, you must first become more. And in order to become more, you must work harder on yourself than you do on your job. So go out there today and work harder on yourself to become more and build the life of your dreams. Until next time, my friends.